I'm David Barber. I grew up right outside Washington, D.C. My mother and my father work for the government, and I was raised in a Catholic family. There was one older sister and I. My mother and my father had gotten together when they were much older. It was his second marriage and her first. We were together as a family to my age of 8 when my father died. So my father died very early. And one of the things I was excited about when I was younger was dance. So I was in dance classes when I was like 6 and 7. And my mother tells this story about my father said, no son of mine is going to be in a dance class. He's not going to be learning ballet. My father said, no more. And so my mother pulled me out of ballet class, and my father died 2 weeks later. And 2 weeks after that, my mother put me back in ballet class. So it was one of those things there. I never had the problem that most people have where they butt heads with their father or they butt heads with their mother, because I think my mother sort of knew in the back of her mind that I was going to be like an artistic child, at least that. And my father, I think, was going to probably have a problem with it. And by the time I was 8 and a half, I was beginning to like be a little bit more of an unstandard boy. I thought that was shocking that my mother just turned around and put me back into dance classes, even though my father had not wanted me to be there. So I had that youth where, like, I grew up with my mom in a house with aunts and cousins and my older sister. And so when people ask me how I was raised, I say I was raised by 7 women. So, like, when people start talking about, I don't know, women around me start talking about their experience of, like, getting their first period and stuff like that. Like, I have stories about, like, when my sister had that happen and things like that. So it's sort of like I was never fully inculcated into the world of men. Like, I wasn't like, you have to work on the car, you have to shoot a gun. I would never really had any of that pressure. I think I did a t-ball or something. I did do some sports when I was younger, and felt okay about it. But they just weren't my forte. And by the time I got to be 12 or 14, I just knew that there was something different. And it was odd. I was really into girls until I was like 5 or 6 or 7, and then the minute like the guys in 7th grade grew leg hair, immediately I was transfixed. And I was like, what is this? This is the most interesting thing I've ever seen. And that's when I kind of figured out that I was more attracted to men than I was to women. And then I got really upset and kind of depressed from 13 to 18 because I thought, it's going to be really hard and people are not going to want to talk to me. And I'm going to have a hard time making friends and having a normal life, like what I think of as a normal life. And I thought it was going to be challenging, but I thought I could, sort of work on it. And so when I was 18, I came home one day. I had about a 45-minute commute to high school. And my mother said to me, why are you crying in traffic? Because I was crying when I was driving home. And I said, it's just, it's really tough. High school's really tough. And she said, you can tell me anything, which was the door opener. And I said, okay, well, I like guys. And she was like, oh. And she immediately said, we'll take you to a psychiatrist. Well, it's fine. We'll take you to a psychiatrist. And, one of the things I knew about my mother is my mother was very stingy. So I knew that if it was about the money for the psychiatrist, she would not apply money to this problem. So I laughed and kind of said, okay, fine, I'll go to a psychiatrist. And of course, she never sent me to a psychiatrist about this problem. We had some fights about it. Like, she's like, how could you be so sure? And I'm like, well, I'm sure. And what happened over, I'll say, maybe 20 or 25 years, is she got comfortable with the idea of the fact that she had a gay son. And I think she kind of liked me. I don't know if she liked me being gay, but I think she liked me enough that she thought, okay, it's gonna be okay, I think. And so one day we were having a long drive somewhere, and she turned to me and she said, I don't care that you're gay. I just want you to be happy. And I'm afraid that being gay, you're going to be tortured or you're going to be upset and angry or unhappy all your life. And she said, I just want what I want for your sister, which is meet somebody nice, have a good life, and, be a part of the mainstream human experience. She was a lovely person wanting that for me. And when she died, it kind of made it okay. She didn't necessarily want me to be that way, but she had a high level of acceptance and love around it by the time she left the earth. So that was helpful. When I was about 14, someone had a video tape machine. I think it was my sister's best friend's family. And they said, oh, we'll bring the videotape thing. And so I forget, we were on vacation somewhere, maybe, by the ocean. And they're like, okay, we're going to take a tape of people. We're like, okay. And so I saw myself that afternoon when they played it on videotape. And one of the things I realized is that if I walked into a room and was standing there and talking to people for about 5 minutes, everyone would know I was gay. Like, I wouldn't even have to say anything, because they talk a little bit now in some areas about sort of gay voice or like sort of gay attitude or stuff that, some people put off. And I think that, yeah, I was born with all this stuff that makes you think that the minute I walk in the room, oh gosh, he has to be a gay guy. And I know some straight people who kind of come off a little effeminate. And so I've seen it kind of both directions, kind of. But I had this realization that, like, I could not stay in the closet because everyone would make the assumption. And I was pretty much that person. So I could either sort of take the ball and run with it, or like try to deny that, I was the way I was. And so by the time I was 18, I was a little upset about it, but I pretty much had decided that, I can't hide my light under a bushel. You can't just walk around and not talk to people. That I was going to have one of those business careers and a life where, like, I would walk in the room and people who'd never met me before would say, so, how are you? And I'd say, hi. And the jig was up. Like, the jig was immediately up. And I know that a lot of people are like, oh, I can hide it. I can be straight. I can date women. I think the farthest I got with a woman was, I think on a date, I might have touched some woman's boobs when I was like 16, like on a double date with my sister. She was dating someone from my military school who was gay, we found out later. And I went with her best friend, and I was gay. So the gay guy was in the back seat with one of the girls, and the gay guy was in the front seat with the other girl. And the girls were just happy because, gay guys, they don't paw you that much, on dates. So they were like, oh, we can have a really nice time. And it's like, yeah, we can have a really nice time. But I really wanted to be with the guy in the front seat. So that was kind of weird. And when I was in high school, I went to a military school in D.C. And it was a Catholic school. And my mother said, basically, here are the 3 top schools in D.C. And if you'd like to go to a good high school, let's pick a good high school. The 3rd best school in the city was a Catholic school for boys that was primarily run as an ROTC program. So it was a military school. And my mother said, you're just going to have to put up with the military part of it. And I was like, okay, I'll put up with the military part of it. So I learned how to shoot a gun prone from, in the gun range. And, I learned a lot about the military, and it was just odd. It was really odd. College was a bit challenging because there were 10,000 students on campus, and most of them were undergraduates. But most of Notre Dame was, white, from the Midwest, Catholic, conservative. My family is extremely liberal. I'm gay and openly gay at that point, as much as possible. It was really hard to meet other gay people on campus. There was sort of like an informal club group kind of thing that people would sort of meet up during. But like when you were first new freshman year, you didn't know who was who or what was going on. And there were a couple of times when people just came up to me and started talking like they knew me. And it was because they knew I was gay and they were gay and they just wanted to become my friend. But it was weird because it was such a cold open kind of thing. Like there was really nothing to discuss other than the fact that we were both gay. There was a lot of stuff going on that was sort of rumored. And the people that we hung out with the most were the architects, because I guess a lot of the architects were gay and didn't give a care. And so we would hang out at the Archie building, and a lot of people would sort of see us there. And there were some outlandish parties. I remember there was a lot of dress up parties. That's where we sort of could fit into things that were happening in our dorms and be okay with the fact that we were sort of non standard people in a place that was very cold, very conservative, and very sort of not okay of differences. So I finally graduated, and I ended up returning to DC and getting a master's degree in Chicago. And so there were a couple of years where I bounced around to different jobs and different cities. And then I ended up in LA in 1992 in publicity for theater. I started hanging out with Stonewall Democratic Club, which had been set up earlier. I was really happy to know all these people because they really influenced me. And I kind of feel like I was in the swim of some of it, as it went along in the 90s and the early 2000s. And some of these people are still my better friends. I think it helped me to kind of feel like a member of the gay community. We were trying to do things that would benefit gays and lesbians overall. And also, we did get some things done. And so it was very satisfying, I would say. Well, I think if I were to think back on who I was and the time period I was in, this is true today as well as back then, is kind of be true to yourself. Because I think the more you know who you are and the way you want to conduct your life, it'll be easier for you. When I was there, I wish someone had said to me, oh yes, you can have a relationship. Oh yes, you can have, like a household where you are a gay couple and you're going to adopt children. Had I seen that in the future, I would have probably have aimed for that. And I just felt like at the time that it just wasn't an option for me. And I think that if I had a crystal ball and could look into the future, or someone could come back and tell me, oh, this is going to be fine, you should try to aim for this, then I would have been more focused on that. I think that I would have been more relationship oriented. And I think I probably would have had a boyfriend or some, long-term situation. But I don't think it was a tragedy. I think, I kind of had a good life, and I've been out mostly, and that my friends and my family and the people I've worked with have all been really supportive, and I've been a productive member of society over those years.